Welcome back to Gruber Motor Company. I'm Pete Gruber.
And I'm Zane Courtney.
And we are here to entertain you with all things related to alternative energy, EVs, and whatever questions you may have. We have some expertise here, and we'd certainly like to share that with you. First thing that we usually spend some time with is the picture behind us. This is a small village south of Rochester, New York, called Honeoye Falls. And it's a picture I took years ago when we were staying at my sister-in-law's house, who had a home there in this little village. And the population of this village is 2674. That seems really tiny, doesn't it?
It's also very specific.
Yes, yes. The waterfall is actually part of Honeoye Creek. It could have been the Genesee River because that's a larger river that flows through that area. They make a beer with that too.
I was about to ask if those were the falls that we're seeing.
Yeah, they do have falls on the Genesee River as well, right in downtown Rochester, actually. But,
what kind of beer they make?
Oh, all kinds. Bock beer. It was a bunch of Germans in the 1920s and 30s that helped them get their brewery started in Rochester, New York.
No kidding.
Yeah, pretty good beer, actually. You can visit. They have a restaurant now at the brewery, right on Genesee, right on the river there. Well worth going to. Good food too. So anyway, where does the strange name come from? Honeoye Creek. Well, a lot of Native American influence in that part of the country, and it was an Indian tribe that was called Seneca. There we go. Yeah, it's a Seneca word. Haneyaha. Honeoye is what we turned it into eventually. What it means is lying finger or where the finger lies, and the name comes from a local story of a Native American whose finger was bitten by a rattlesnake and who therefore cut off his finger with a tomahawk.
Dang.
Out of legend there. So anyway, enjoy the picture. It's a quaint little town, and there's a small waterfall there. Nothing the size of the larger waterfall in the same state. But, yeah.
This seems like a destination now because all I want to do is go to the brewery, have a good time, and then go look for that finger.
Yeah.
They've got it somewhere.
Well, one of the first things I wanted to show you guys is we've got a Twitter feud that's going on right now between Elon and Joe Biden. Can we bring up that picture there, guys?
Not the first time that's happened, as far as I know.
Yeah, as soon as we have that up. We've got a little delay here. We've
Perfect.
got it? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, and I'm sure this isn't Biden tweeting. I don't know if he tweets. But anyway, he's got a press department.
We know Elon does.
Stuff. Yeah. Talking about the fact they're building 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations across the country. The great American road trip will be fully electrified. And of course, Elon just couldn't pass up commenting on that. And he says, or you can just buy a Tesla. And then as an afterthought, Elon added, worth mentioning that Tesla has open sourced its charge connector and is enabling other EVs to use Tesla superchargers.
Now that last comment is probably the saving grace of this whole thing, because the first comment, as funny as it is, does kind of give that the same vibe that we've seen before on Twitter, where some people are just like, oh, just go buy a Tesla if you want to be environmentally friendly. Well, not obviously that's not in the cards for everybody, but the fact that it's Elon, not because of that environmental sentiment, but fixed mic. So, sorry. So it's not necessarily in the same vein. It's a great joke on his behalf. It's a great retort. But I also love that he's also talking openly about NACS and how we're going to be moving forward with that.
Yeah, and we'll have a little bit more later in the segment about NACS and an actual OEM that is adopting it, besides Tesla, of course. So we had a lot of interest in the Tesla Semi, and have some more stats for you. This Tesla Semi, of course, is rated or can be loaded up to 82,000 pounds, which is the standard in the United States for maximum payload. Range is either 300 miles or 500 miles, depending on the two battery options. And one, of course, is less expensive than the other. So you can get a maximum range or get the scaled down version.
And that's a perfectly fitting range for such a vehicle.
Energy consumption, less than 2 kW per mile. Estimated battery capacity, based on range and energy consumption, either 600 kWh or 1,000 kWh.
I've
or
seen
1 megawatt.
somewhere, and we mentioned it a little bit on the last show, where it could be somewhere around 914 specifically.
I think that was the exact number. Yeah, they're rounding up here, it looks like.
It's also worth mentioning because less than 2 kilowatt hours per mile is something of a reverse equivalent to gas mileage, right? If you see a higher gas mileage, 24, 30, 40 miles per gallon, that's considered efficient. With electric vehicles, it's the opposite. A smaller number of to push you per mile.
Good point.
And that's something that came to me the other day. I was like, huh. Yeah, this is like golf scoring now. We're trying to get as small as possible.
I gotta fix this. Sorry, guys. So then we gotta put this on the outside and
Here we
put it
go.
in a spot where
All
it's
good.
not gonna be. It's gonna
We
be
have
fine.
microphone
Feedback.
issues once in a while.
Put it on this side.
Perfect. Sorry about that, folks. Here we go. Check.
Sure.
1, 2. Hey, yeah, check. 1, 2.
No, it's fully exposed, but yeah,
that's
that's
all
cool. We're cyborgs. We've got
Exactly. Yeah.
blinking lights and
I fully embrace
connected,
being a
yeah.
cyborg. Someone mentioned that a number of shows back, and I fully embrace it.
So acceleration 0 to 60 is 20 seconds.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah. And yeah, for a truck, I mean, my God. Speed up a 5% grade. Now remember, 5% grade is problematic for most heavily loaded trucks because of the weight. This thing doesn't care. Highway speed at 5% grade.
Man.
Just gonna cruise right up that that hill or whatever.
Because the best part about going up a hill is that you also have to go down a hill.
Right.
And that's where having an electric powertrain is extremely handy, because all that energy can come right back when you put that much weight right back into the inverter. Hey, it's a good day to be a trucker.
Totally. Powertrain, 3 independent motors versus 4 motors in the initial spec in 2017, but they've scaled it back to 3 motors. 2 electric motors for acceleration at the rear axle with automatic disengage, and 1 electric motor for highway driving at the second axle, which is constantly engaged. So it looks like you're not constantly using 3 motors, which of course helps your range. The motors, with the carbon, or with the Tesla Model S Plaid, they came out with a new design motor, carbon sleeved rotors. So this semi has the same type of technology, carbon sleeved rotors, just like the Plaid. Now they talk about fast charging, up to 70% of range in 30 minutes.
Yes.
That's not as bad as we all thought it was going to be, trying to charge 1 megawatt of power.
So that's another big piece of news. The idea that we can now get a megawatt of charging. This is going to be a whole host of questions that are coming out all about this. I mean, that's a whole new sphere of trying to get power out of these chargers. And they're also going to be incorporating them into the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
They've officially announced the Cybertruck is also going to be able to use that 1 megawatt charging, same as the Semi.
Sure.
And but that's going to be, that does host a lot of questions, like how do we cool that? What is that going to change the infrastructure? What is that? Different questions like that. But it's so exciting because that's confirmed. We're going to get a megawatt of charging output from these chargers.
Awesome. I just saw a question fly by there, and it said, why is 0 to 60 important with a truck like that? Well, the simple answer is, comparatively speaking,
Yes.
it's important. But no one really expects semi-trucks loaded up doing drag racing.
No.
Well, wait a minute. Having said that, now wouldn't that be cool, though, at the quarter-mile drag strip?
Well, don't they? They have race trucks.
It's true. They have
That's
these,
a thing.
these sleds where tractors are pulling gigantic, heavy loads and snapping axles left and right, and ripping tires apart. And
Look, in 20
All right.
years, we're going to see that with these electric trucks. They're just going to be wild to watch.
So maybe it is important. We're going to have truck drag racing. But we agree with you. It's a TikTok question. It's probably not as relevant as it should be, but it's a lot of fun.
And it does matter when it comes to something like highway merging.
Yeah, yeah.
Having an instant torque and top speed is really convenient. Not only convenient, it's also mostly safer to be able to get up to a proper highway speed as quickly as you can to keep up with traffic.
We should probably begin to record the quickest questions regarding sunglasses. And what just popped up
a little
within the
lightning round.
First 5 minutes, and it was again sunglasses. Why? Does a semi-truck? No, well, let's
Come
give
with sunglasses.
Yeah,
I
give the
sure
audience-
hope so.
It's a TikTok. Burnt finger girl. What's that?
There's a bow tie and a flag. But she has a great question. Does the Cybertruck, or not the Cybertruck, the Tesla Semi come with sunglasses?
It should.
Yeah, I
absolutely
agree.
should.
It
These guys are
absolutely
on the
should.
road all day, or guys, gals, whoever, and I'm sure they're going to go into the sun at times. So yes, sunglasses is mandatory. And once we get our swag on our website, we'll probably have a semi-truck sunglass set.
That'd be so cool. Oh, some go with a trucker hat.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, we got ideas, guys. We got ideas. Alex W. asks, my problem with the Semi is that we don't know how big the battery is. We don't know how much the truck weighs or how much it costs. Actually,
we can answer some of that. Yes, the next segment here, Alex W. is going to address at least one of those questions, which surprised me, by the way. The 300-mile range truck, which is a scaled-down version, is $150,000. You know, the sedans used to be more than that. You know, I mean, to get a loaded up Lucid these days is just under 200K. You can get a whole freaking truck for 150 grand here, you know, that's able to pull 80,000 pounds or whatever.
I love that the guys at Tesla Time News are actually number 65 on the Semi list, and it's just two guys.
Yeah. The base price of the 500-mile range, which is their, top of the line, is $180,000. Now, we've got a lot of people in the audience that I would love to have chime in. What does a standard diesel Semi cost? I thought that they were beyond $180,000. I thought they were more expensive than that.
Specifically a new one, because I'm sure old ones, maybe they retain their
Brand
value.
new, to do a fair comparison, it'd have to be brand new.
Yeah. It'd be fun to kind of look at the used market for some of these old. I actually did some research because I was really curious about what the same model of Optimus Prime from the 80s.
Right.
I wonder what that would be, and it was somewhere along the line of like for a 1985 flat nose cab over like that. It was somewhere around 60 grand.
Cool. Yeah.
From the 80s. So I don't know how much they hold their value, but yeah, one for one. Let's see some new trucks versus what the Tesla Semi is going to be at 180K, and that's upfront cost. That's not. Think about all the stuff that you're going to save on fuel.
Mm-hmm. There's one additional cost, which leave it to Tesla. They always come out with their Founders Series or their Signature Series, which in the world of collecting will become important at some point in the future. If you want a early Signature Series or what they call the Founders Series semi-truck, the reservation for that is $200,000. So it's a bit more, but you might make that up in 10 years when these things are collectible, if they become collectible.
Yeah, right.
By the way, TikTok, Burnt Finger Girl. She's sending us a bunch of hearts. She says, you guys are awesome. We think you're awesome too, Burnt Finger Girl.
I also want to know who out there is going to be able to collect semi-trucks. That's not a common hobby that we see nowadays.
Where would you put it? Yeah,
Big yards.
Yeah.
Big driveway.
Of course, most collectors probably store their vehicles elsewhere. They don't have a two-car garage you're trying to jam them into, like I did years ago.
Yeah.
Silly. Half my car sat outside undercover.
Oh, I live in an apartment, and I park outside currently.
Yeah.
From TikTok on Roger R, do you think the first-gen Cybertruck is going to be okay to buy? Probably. I mean, it's got to come to market soon and satisfy customers.
If it was any other EV manufacturer, I would say, a bit of caution, let it mature, let it settle. But, Tesla's been doing this over a decade, and the technology in that truck is not substantially different than the cars that they've already field tested for the last 10 years plus. So, no, I think you're safe with the Cybertruck.
And you could always apply the Scotty Kilmer kind of wisdom of give a car 5 to 7 years to see what the typical breaking points are. That's kind of when you see the main issues with any vehicle, 5 to 7 years. But I think if you already have, I'm assuming you already have a Cybertruck reservation. Maybe you don't, but if you do, I wouldn't worry about that because...
We got some feedback from TikTok, Bill Wood, and he's giving us a price on a new Kenworth 2022. $161,000. Okay, so you can get a new diesel, at least in this particular brand, a bit less than this or I keep saying Cybertruck, like you.
Yeah, I know.
Semi-truck. We don't want to create any false hope here.
This semi-truck is at 180K. So about 20K more. Same with West Berlin 58 on Instagram. Can confirm a new Peterbilt is also about
160.
$160K.
Okay.
So 20 grand more, and you're probably going to save 20 grand on electricity, given fuel costs compared to...
The 3-year savings, which is another statistic, is $200,000.
There you go.
Over 3 years use. So you've already made that up. So it looks like the semi-truck, Tesla semi-truck, is actually a better deal than the diesels, which of course is the whole goal here. We got to get these fossil fuel burners off the road. Do you remember in the last podcast, we talked about that 1% of the vehicles on the roads in the United States are diesel semis. But they're responsible for almost 30% of the pollution that's being generated.
It's a big truck.
So there's a compelling reason to get those guys off the road and get them converted to something electric.
Pete, did I miss the part where you want to bring up the picture of the engines?
Oh yeah, this is a perfect time to do that. We have a scale picture of a diesel engine with a woman standing next to it just for scale, and then the semi-truck engine with and the picture's lousy, but we'll get it up here, and I think you can see what the point they're trying to make is. Yeah. Now that upper picture, of course, is the diesel engine. The one down below with the guy standing there is the semi-truck engine or motor, let's say. But what they're not telling you here is the semi-truck engine or motor has the transaxle attached to it. The diesel up on top does not. So it's actually larger than what you're seeing here. So there's a substantial difference in size and weight and all the rest of that.
Of course, some of that weight will be made up with battery size, but it's a conversation that keeps coming up thanks to a certain Bill Gates who keeps thinking that you're stuck in a paradox, right? Like, oh, well, you're going to need more batteries to get more power, to get more things, which means more batteries. We've discovered that that's not true. And the Tesla Semi has officially proved that that's not necessarily true because of the battery size that it already has, capable of being able to tow the minimum standard at 82,000 pounds.
It looks like Roger R. on TikTok has a reservation for one of these 3-motor semis with full self-driving.
Oh, no, he's got a Cybertruck on...
Oh, CT. Okay, yes, that's right. He wants to get from California to AZ without stopping.
Amen. I hear you, brother. That's one of my dreams, to get an EV, is being able to do that. Because I also make that road trip going the other way. I go from Arizona to California pretty often. And I tell you what, that would be fantastic if I didn't have to stop, but one time.
Wow, they're even talking about a health monitoring system in the semi-truck. Does it include fever monitoring system?
Ooh.
Keeping the drivers or a check on their health is probably a good idea. Guys, all of this stuff is coming. The telemetry, the observation of the driver in the car, recording, and worse yet, maybe even reporting that to authorities. We're not going to get away from that with this kind of technology that's available today.
Well, we got to remember, again, hopefully 10 years there won't be drivers.
Well, true. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
No more steering wheels and no more pedals in cars.
If there's an infrastructure specifically made for those, I mean, I think it's been pretty interesting to watch the collaboration between fully human drivers and then having automated drivers on human roads. And what we found is it's kind of better if we have automated drivers on automated roads and human drivers on human roads, because the two don't seem to mesh very well. Yeah. So you guys are right, and especially in places like cities where you don't really need to be driving yourself. It'd be kind of nice if the car can just drive you wherever you are, simply because, and we're in Arizona where everything's pretty spread out, and we're still like, yeah, let's go ahead and, let the car drive itself all around town. That's what's nice about downtown Phoenix is for how spread out it is. It never feels too claustrophobic.
Even though this seems like amazingly new technology that we're going to have to adopt and integrate somehow, it's really been around. If you think about this, trains, for example.
Oh, yeah.
There's no steering wheel on a train. You can only go the direction of that track. And I'm sure that the stopping and starting and all of those types of things have already been automated to some extent. Now, granted, you have an operator that's kind of looking out the window and making sure they're, if there's a deer out there, they want to, be able to see that before it hits it. But so it's not a terribly new technology. And as suspected, it's definitely safer than human drivers and human involvement.
So thank you. I think it was Rod on LinkedIn who asked about fever monitoring and things like that. Rod Kurihara on LinkedIn, thank you for your question.
Yeah.
Roger R. also says that, yep, he's got that Cybertruck on reservation. He also asks, do you guys know if they will upgrade chargers for the Cybertruck? Well, we did talk about how they are going to implement the 1 megawatt charging access both for the Cybertruck as well as the Tesla semi-truck.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got a segment here later on that talks about the new NACS charging standard that Tesla has released. And I don't know whether the Cybertruck is going to use that or whether they're going to stay with the old Trident connector, which is currently, being put on all Teslas. We'll probably have to report on that in the next podcast. We've got a Chinese company, BYD, been around for a while, that apparently just took the lead in China for overall EV sales, took it away from Tesla. And can we put up that picture of the BYD Seal electric sedan? A lot of people are feeling that this is the most important model currently in the Chinese automakers' short history.
So I'm going to pull that up on the website. I don't see an image in the folder for that.
Okay, yeah, if you would, please. The BYD built its first electric car in 2003 and evolved into an EV powerhouse to dominate sales in China. And last month, they became the largest EV seller in the world's largest car market, China. They are also in the midst of an international expansion, and they plan to sell these EVs, the BYD Seal, in a number of European countries, as well as markets in Latin America, the Caribbean, Middle East, Asia, and Oceania. Europe is obviously the biggest prize for BYD for the Seal compact sedan. Now you can see the styling lines on this are pretty close to a Tesla Model S.
It looks hilariously something like a Model 3 mixed with a Honda Accord.
Yeah, that's probably a good analogy.
Kind of something in between there. I'm also, and I don't quote me on this, but do they also implement battery swap technology, or are they purely just charging?
Doesn't say anything about battery swap on this car. I think it's purely charging.
Okay.
However, the interior on this car begins to resemble a Model 3. It's got the detached or mounted screen versus the embedded screen in the Model S, which is part of your dash. But the interior looks definitely like a luxury car. And they had a number of journalists actually sample this car, and the feedback was universally positive. They feel it'll be a huge hit in Europe. Wheels boy Ethan Robertson calls it the new benchmark. So their feeling is that this particular car offers the whole package. Now here's where it gets murky. They don't quite define what does the whole package mean. But it looks good inside and out with some of the feedback. It has good quality, well put together interior, and it's a cut above what you would normally see come out of China, they were saying. It offers punchy performance and innovative engineering, a couple of more subjective terms. But yeah, if you look at the interior here, you see some sky there, don't you? It looks like it's got that glass top. The specs on this, and I've got a little bit here for you. They are 82.5 kW LFP structural battery pack, so it's getting closer to the Model Y type design, which enables it to go, according to China's CLTC cycle, over 300 miles. Now, I did a little, I did some research here. By the way, it's 435 miles claimed with the CLTC standard. We have the EPA standards here in the United States. It turns out that the feeling is the CLTC Chinese standard for range is too generous. It's often overstated. So it will most likely be closer to 300 miles, which puts it back into the same territory as some of the other emerging EVs currently, or luxury EVs. Feedback was the Seal's chassis feels really tight, nimble, responsive to drive. It's quick too. It covers 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds. Well, yeah, I'm not sure that's, in today's world, that's probably a ho-hum spec, but
It's passable.
it's passable. Yeah,
Passable.
for a
I think
for a
that's for
passenger
their
car.
entry-level trim. I think they do have one that does about
Okay.
3.9 or something.
Okay.
Does it? Okay. Yeah, I don't have that here. It is an 800-volt e-platform system. Remember we talk about this once in a while. Tesla is remaining with 400 volts right now for their sedans, but Europe is definitely higher in 800. And the advantages there are it's more lethal voltages is a disadvantage. The advantage is smaller wire sizes for charging. The higher the voltage, the lower the amperage, and amperage is what determines the size of that conductor that you need to charge.
And that's important going back to the NACS, because with NACS, you're going to use that Tesla Trident design for a lot of these things, and we're going to be able to. The nice thing about that system is that it's a smaller, thinner form factor, and we may not need now thinner cables if we decide to also adopt a 800 size versus a 400.
Volt systems, yeah. They say that the price of this BYD Seal vehicle is $37,000, and it is cheaper actually than the Model 3 rear-wheel drive in China. So it looks like BYD has a winner on their hands, but is it good enough to beat Tesla? And they say only time will tell.
Yeah, only
like we
time will
got-
tell. It's exciting when new vehicles come to the market because, hey, who knows? It kind of goes back to what we were asking about the Cybertruck. Is the first one going to be good? Time will tell.
We've got a comment here from TikTok. User with a bunch of numbers. He's been here before. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Good to
Welcome.
see you again.
I keep looking over there. It's because our questions are there. I know that TikTok is right there. So if you see me looking away, it's not because I've forgotten you guys.
TikTok is our friend that's also here at our table with us, and so are you guys, and thank you all so much for getting to be here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like Elon's in hot water again. This time it's with San Francisco, the Twitter offices, and this one had me chuckling a bit. It looks like the San Francisco Department of Building Inspection is investigating a complaint that Twitter's CEO Elon Musk has converted office space at the company's headquarters into bedrooms for employees. This is following a Forbes report.
Diabolical.
Yes. Of course, the authorities say we need to make sure that the building is being used as intended. And
It is.
there are different building code requirements if you're going to sleep in a building, apparently. You know, hotels are zoned differently than, you know, commercial buildings where people show
sure.
up to work and then go home, that type of thing. Well, the Twitter employees are arriving at work, that were arriving at work one day recently, were surprised that some of the rooms, the conference rooms, for example, suddenly had queen-sized mattresses. And the conference room table had been replaced with an unmade mattress. Someone pointed out it's not a good look. They wouldn't openly state that because of fear of reprisal. So we don't know who it was, but they said it's yet another sign of unspoken disrespect, since there is no discussion, just like the beds showed up. Well, the reason, of course, is it has been alleged that Elon sometimes sleeps at the factories during the Model 3 ramp up. There were many nights that employees reported that he worked late and simply fell asleep on a couch somewhere, which really, to me, shows some real dedication. You know, how many people would forego going home, having a meal and a shower and, you know, spending time with the family and staying at the office so that they can hit it again first thing in the morning?
Yeah.
That shows real dedication. So Musk responded, which, of course, I would expect him to do. And he said, well, it looks like the city of San Francisco attacks companies providing beds for tired employees instead of making sure that the kids are safe from fentanyl.
Oof.
So there's a good response.
He's
Beyond
always
that,
quick to
Twi-
far back on things like that.
Yeah. Beyond that, Twitter did not otherwise respond for a request for comment. But apparently, the city of San Francisco now is concerned because they don't want certain rooms in this commercial building turned into motel rooms for workers, because it's contrary to code or violates some code.
I think that might be really the only thing. If there's some people at Twitter that want to be able to take advantage of that, sure. If there's some negative sentiment, look, the people within Twitter can figure this out. I don't know why it has to be anyone else's business. And so, yeah, it's well, time will tell.
One comment, though, from somebody supportive of this that works within Twitter, and it was Esther Crawford, actually, Director of Product Management at Twitter. She said, when your team is pushing round the clock to make deadlines, sometimes you have to sleep where you work. All right, and people are already putting in late nights, she said. Adding places for them to sleep makes sense to an extent, said another source who was also granted anonymity. All right, so we'll see how that one plays out. I hope the city of San Francisco looks the other way and lets a few people sleep in there once in a while so they can get the job done and keep Twitter running.
And if you're watching us from San Francisco, good morning and hello to you. From Darren N on YouTube, good morning to you, Darren. Good to see you again. Yeah.
Well, quick question. So Google, they have a bunch of sleeping pods in their offices, and my understanding is they're based in San Francisco as well, right? I wonder if the city is going to go after them.
Or Google did the correct thing, which is get a variance or get some permits for that.
Sure.
But this sounds to me like nobody realized that there's going to be a code violation if somebody parks, and sleeps in there once in a while, and yeah.
There was a time in college where I found out that I actually wasn't allowed to bring my own mattress because I got a new mattress. I wasn't sleeping well on the one that they provided, so I got a new mattress, and it turns out that was actually it was a code violation
Health
for
violation,
the college.
I'll bet. Yeah, because they like to control the what's brought in.
And I was like, well, darn. So I had a whole mattress. Like I had the mattress basically flipped up against the wall for the next semester.
Right. All right. Oh, the car that I wanted to show our audience, can we pop up the 1937 Auto Union Type C Stromlinie?
Ooh, I've been wanting to see this because I didn't get to see it in pre-show.
For those of you that are car people, this has got to resonate with you like it did with me. I mean, the curves on this car are beyond anything that 1937 had ever seen before. They didn't have wind tunnels back then. They didn't even think about those things. Remember, it wasn't until the 70s that NASCAR finally realized that you had to put cars in a wind tunnel and stop building them like a brick if you wanted to go 200 miles an hour because you're pushing way too much air.
That car looks like what they assumed a wind tunnel would produce.
Exactly, yes, yes. And later on, I'll show you
like a
why
paintbrush.
that very concept proved to the detriment of this car. But let's go through the history on this first. In 1932, apparently in Europe, they were just done with the wars, World War I, and later on came II, but this is World War I. They founded a union called Auto Union, which was founded by an, I can't say this properly, amalgamation, there we go, amalgamation of 4 German automobile manufacturers, DKW, Wanderer, Audi, and Horch. Now, there are only one of those in there that resonate with me. The other ones may still be in business, but I have never heard of them. DKW, Wanderer, and Horch. All right. So these 4 companies, to overcome the depression of World War I, backed by the government, created this race car. Together with companies like Daimler-Benz. I guess they were involved as well. This Auto Union Type C was the world's first mid-engine GP racing car and was designed by no other than Dr. Ferdinand Porsche. So there's yet another auto manufacturer involved.
So every big name in Germany got together and they said, hey, what kind of car can we make that looks like a teardrop and a paintbrush combined?
Yeah, and that will lift the spirits of the war-torn population and give them something else to focus on that might be more fun than, all of the atrocities.
And you know what, darn it, that is fun. So good for them. I'm glad they...
So there was a ace race driver by the name of Bernd Rosemeyer who drove this car, and apparently it was a very difficult car to drive because it was very tail heavy, and only a handful of skilled drivers were able to control this car properly on the track. Now, what else is amazing about this car is this is a 16-cylinder engine in here. It's mounted longitudinally in the car.
V16.
A V16.
Is that what's, because I see that the driver's a little off-centered, a little offset, so I wonder if the engine's running.
It's that behind him, actually.
Oh, it's behind him, okay.
Yeah, it's behind him with a overhead cam with a 2-stage supercharger, putting out, now mind you, in 1937, 512 horsepower at 5,000 RPM. That's an enormous amount of power. So they ended up taking this to a number of racetracks, and of course they won a lot of events with it. The final resting place for this car was in 1938. Bernd Rosemeyer, who was the most successful driver with this car, was attempting a speed record on the Autobahn between Frankfurt and Darmstadt. And the car unfortunately blasted off course by a sudden gust of wind, overturned, killed Rosemeyer immediately, and the car was completely totaled. And there are no other cars built at the time, so all we have is history at this point.
Wow.
But the top speed attained with this car, and again, 1937, was 298 miles per hour. That's almost 300 miles an hour.
Wow.
So this is definitely
And
a
with 500
historic car.
horsepower kicking that forward, no wonder.
And just think if there was at least one left in existence. I mean, it'd be in a museum, certainly, but the value of this would be incomprehensible. All right.
A couple good questions from Zoltan on YouTube. Twitter people don't seem to like dedication. You know, there's a line, you know, and if you operate your business with certain parameters and your employees are going to be able to be okay with that, sure. You know, this is a touchy subject because, you know, there's a big conversation about, you know, what we should and should not allow businesses to get away with in order to meet deadlines and so on and so forth. I don't know if it's so much about dedication so much as it is, you know, making a statement and being open and honest. Because if it is true that a bunch of mattresses showed up at Twitter while they're already a bit unstable, yeah, I could see how that wouldn't go over particularly well. But on the other hand, it doesn't go over horribly, according to the Twitter director.
But, you know, Elon had a couple of options when he bought this thing for $44 billion. You could have just left it alone, let it continue to run, you know, and don't shift the culture, and then gradually tweak things and make adjustments as it goes. And, you know, in retrospect, I don't know which would have been better. That's probably the way I would have done it. I don't think I would have gone in and said, 70% of you are going to be gone, but I'm not going to tell you which ones you are. That just creates fear, uncertainty. And unfortunately, you may lose 25% of the people that you had planned to keep because they are polishing their resumes, and they're probably the ones that are more employable than the 75% you wanted to get rid of, right? But anyway, having said that.
No, yeah, absolutely. But now we can only find out.
Yeah, I mean, doing a culture shift in an organization is kind of like taking a fully loaded oil tanker on an ocean and trying to get it to do a U-turn. Yeah. You know, you've got to go a few 50 miles or more before you can even begin to affect a change there.
It doesn't corner well, that's for sure.
No, it doesn't corner well.
People are the same.
You know, hats off to Elon for trying his best, but that is a monumental task. So, you know, I expect a lot of backlash. And that's the sort of thing that you would get, you know. A lot of haters are going to come out of the woodwork, and that's what we're beginning to see. Now, the real interesting thing to me is, what will Twitter evolve into?
Time will tell.
Will it be profitable? Will it begin to overtake some of the other social media sites that have grown, like Twitter, way too fast and are out of control? So, if Elon does as good a job as he did with the other companies, I expect this to be a stellar organization at some point in time. Can he make it through all of the clutter and all of the you know, turmoil?
Time will tell.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to report on it too.
What's that, Jesse?
We'll make sure to be reporting on it too.
We will be reporting on it. Absolutely.
From YouTube Shorts, our friend Avshalom Margalit, all Elon has to do is put mattresses on the sidewalk in front of the office and he'll be fine.
Good point, yes. Let's give the homeless people some place to sleep. And then the city of San Francisco has absolutely no complaints.
From Darren N on YouTube, are Tesla Semi batteries, going back to the Tesla Semi here, are they only recommended to charge to 80%? If that's true, hopefully they can change to newer batteries soon.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but I would suspect that that is the case because the type of battery technology that's in this truck is identical or comparable to what's in the other vehicles. And the 80% charge is definitely the healthiest range for that type of battery.
Our friend, user 7856 on TikTok. So their Model 3 is lost range. It's down to 200 miles at 100%. Any suggestions on how to get some back?
Well, it's
Oh, it's a standard range plus Model 3.
okay. The only way to get range back is if you have a faulty resistive cell that is rapidly draining the battery or a brick. And then the car or the charging system will adjust down rapidly. If it's a gradual decline based on use, and by the way, I wouldn't charge at 100% because that's what begins to marginalize the cells as they age.
You can go back to 80%.
Yeah, go back to 80%. But if it's a gradual decline, there is no magic formula that will increase your battery mileage or range and get it back to where it used to be. A complete pack replacement is the only option at that point.
Yeah, and Model 3 should be under warranty, right?
Should be, yes. Yeah. We don't know how many miles this has on it because I think the warranty is twofold. It's age and also mileage.
There you
Okay.
go.
So, Aptera's in the news again. Aptera.
We talked a little bit about them on our last show regarding NACS.
We did, yes. And it looks like they are the first OEM to adopt Tesla's new NACS charge port design, which NACS stands for North American Charging Standard, which Tesla just announced a few weeks ago. And in anticipation of the industry begging for some standardization in charging methods. It's frustrating for the pay-for-view charging vendors who don't know quite what cable to put on these charging stations. You know, how many do you put on there?
It's a disruptive technology for everybody, so everyone's still trying to figure that out. And it's nice to know that we're moving in a direction where we have a charging standard that's light, it's reliable, it puts out the same amount of energy as the J1772 plugs with fast charging, and it's in a smaller form factor. And that's a big deal when it comes to engineering these new vehicles.
So let's pop a picture of the Aptera up there. I've got three of them actually. The first one I want you to see is what the car looks like with the solar cells on it. And we've reported on this before. This car can actually charge up to 40-mile range just using solar, which is the first EV that has that substantial a range. There we go. And you can see the solar cells there. It's also easy for a new EV manufacturer that hasn't made a hefty commitment yet in production and who may still be in beta testing or doing validation prototype testing to change a design. An existing car vendor that already is producing vehicles is going to have a much more difficult time changing the charging systems because they have to change all of their charging cables, they have to change their wall chargers, and of course all of the cars. So I'm not surprised that a newcomer like Aptera will be one of the first new OEMs that will be adopting the standard. There's another picture there, Jesse, which is a picture of a cutaway view of the simplicity of the Aptera vehicle. And you can see what's inside. Down below the seats is the battery system, and it's fairly small. Of course, it's a one-seater, and yeah, there we go. It's a revolutionary design. It's not consistent with what all the other EV manufacturers are doing, which is trying to build a four-door grocery getter sedan that can take the family, the kids, and all the rest of it. This is a single commuter car. So when Tesla came out with this or released this open source charging system, they were expecting or hoping that this would become the standard in North America. In Europe, they've already done that. It's the CCS, or the Combined Charging Standard, which is DC and AC charging. There are, of course, a lot of advantages to having one connector works for all, both DC and AC charging, and is also used on all of the EVs. It turns out Aptera was actually instrumental in helping get this push through because back in July of this year, they petitioned and demanded that this design, the Tesla NACS design, be adopted. And we'll have to see whether that happens yet. But so it says not only the Tesla charge port connector design is simple, but it is more efficient and able to hold up to 1 megawatt of charging. Aptera itself, people ask all the time, well, when can I buy one of these? When will it be available? I think pre-orders are already there. I think we reported on this in one of the podcasts. It was astounding how many pre-orders they had. But this three-wheeler electric vehicle with solar charging capability and this new NACS charge port will be available toward the end of this year. That's this month.
Yeah, it's coming. Happy early Christmas.
Yeah. And it's also quite affordable because with an estimated starting price of $25,900, that places it in some serious competition with ICE vehicles.
Honestly, it's the most reasonable commuter car if you live in a city, if you're by yourself. I believe they have a two-seater model. I know we showed the single-seater model, but I believe they also have a two-seater. It's the most reasonable coupe that you could own as a city driver. Mm-hmm. And you happen to have, you only need one vehicle if you're only ever driving around town, I tell you, it's 100% worth looking into.
Mm-hmm. The NACS charge port that Aptera will now be using will also potentially be able to use Tesla superchargers. They are not yet fully open to other auto manufacturers, but Tesla's been talking about doing that in the US. They're doing it in other countries already.
It's great news if that's true, because we already use stations like Electrify America, ChargePoint, certain other, I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but all of those creators are also going to have to modify their form factor as well. So it's not just cars that have to keep this in mind, it's also these charging stations that are more than likely going to have to change heads or create adapters. Because currently when we talk about CCS, we mean the combined J1772 plug with those two larger DC fast charger ports. But that in total is CCS, and that's what you see on most non-Tesla EVs nowadays. But in the future, if we happen to see a more mass adoption of NACS, we could see something like the unreleased Chevy Equinox EV have that Tesla charging port and be able to see that in use with a supercharger. Knock on wood, folks, this would be very cool to see.
Sure. You know, Tesla basically had to create their own charging infrastructure. You know, the superchargers came later, but destination chargers, you know, charging stations. And there's a huge expense attached. It's brilliant that a newcomer like this is simply going to use the Tesla destination chargers and eventually the superchargers once Tesla opens that up. So they don't have to worry about creating their charging infrastructure. They can focus on what they should be doing, which is designing and building their car to make it optimize or to optimize the design and get it out to market.
And it's nice to know that there is an existing infrastructure that's going to be able to not only become more robust, but be able to share with anybody. It's going to be able to be on par with the entire gas network that's been created over the last 100 years. We might even be able to do it in less than 30 at this rate. How cool would that be?
Absolutely.
Oh, it's our user 7856 on TikTok. So their standard range plus Model 3 has 64,000 miles, and Tesla says that it is within spec.
It's within spec. Okay. All right. Well, I can't dispute that.
There we go.
Okay.
Well, I think that that's everything that we wanted to touch on for now.
It is. What's our time running like, guys?
We're at 53 minutes.
53 minutes. Okay. If there are any final questions, please throw them at us now. And we've got TikTok. We've got a bunch of other platforms. And we are here to answer your questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just exciting if we wanted to just keep talking about NACS, because I love the idea that we're going to be able to see this more robust network between, I'm thinking about all the cars that are going to be coming out that still haven't been released that could be able to hop on that, and we could see this nice transition both in North America, but then also around the world, since they already have opened up, like we've mentioned, in Europe, they already use Tesla superchargers open to everybody. Most EV owners seem to have at least one adapter. That may not necessarily be true, but they tend to have an adapter between the CCS and Tesla chargers. So if they go to, let's say a Tesla owner goes to an Electrify America station, throw the adapter on, they can get charged up if there's not already a destination charger from Tesla. And now we can see just a more robust shared network across everybody that, we're going to see in the next 10, 20 years.
I think this is something that will probably be talked about, but I'm disappointed that this late in the game that Europe has adopted a different standard than the U.S. Regarding EVs. I mean, it was pretty obvious early on that the world was going to convert to electric vehicles. That's how transportation is going to be done. The Europeans have already gone through this once before, and the Americans, in that the voltages, for example, you go to Europe, you've got to have an adapter. They run 220 volts. They've got 50 hertz. They don't have 60 hertz. They don't run 120 volts, you know? And so anyway, they've gone through this before, and the need for standardization was clearly made, or the case for that, with the differences in the electrical systems. Why this late in the game we would have two different standards again? It has to be ego. It's the only thing I'm thinking about. Ours is better than yours, and we're not going to, you know, accommodate your needs.
True. Yeah, we still haven't figured that out with the average electrical outlet. So who knows? Maybe in the next 10, 20 years, people should just kind of give up and say, hey, you know what? Let's just use this, see how far we can get.
Well, I think what will make it go away is the fact that this notion of using a cable to charge your car is going to go away.
That's a question we just got from Bill Wood on YouTube. Can't wait for inductive charging.
Yes, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, inductive charging would be very nice.
We've got a question here from YouTube. Darren, a little worried that Tesla will have trouble getting enough lithium for semi-batteries. They will find a way to get enough lithium, yes. Well, recycling is one of the, I think, the saving graces here, because there is, it's a very high percentage of reusable material and lithium ion packs. And many of these packs that are out there now are going to be recycled within the next few years.
Exactly, thanks to Redwood Materials and other companies like them that are going to Nevada. I was just talking to my dad, and it's just funny how Nevada is quickly becoming a sort of center point for a lot of this production, both in terms of refining and mining lithium, which is found there, but then also being able to recycle that. So minimizing the amount of mining that they even have to do in the first place, which they can do locally, and then refining that and recycling that nearby. It's a really cool ecosystem that they're going to be able to build out. We could see Nevada, we could see somewhere around Vegas, wherever that is. We could see that becoming the next Detroit. Sure. And, in the best way, in the height of the automotive industry.
The final part of that answer, though, Darren, is that lithium's reign in EV batteries is short-lived. There are better technologies, and they are evolving. So the use of lithium will, you know, begin to die as these other technologies become online. So personally, I don't think that there is going to be any kind of a shortage or any kind of a you know, barrier with lithium. It looks like Max is watching Instagram. Hello,
What's
Max.
up, buddy?
How are you doing? Give us a question, Max.
Yeah, because I think oh, maybe a couple more questions and then might as well wrap up.
Yeah. TikTok, James Hill, you're absolutely right, James. He says, I think solid state will surpass lithium because of its density. Density, of course, being size, and the goal is to get rid of these 1,200-pound battery packs in cars. If you think about that, it's kind of an absurdity having that much weight to store your energy. And the pressure to reduce weight and size is enormous, and we all know what happens when you have demand. Eventually, in an open, free market society, innovation rules, and you get new product, and it begins to solve those problems. So we're headed that way.
It's exciting. It's happening.
Well, it looks like we're going to wrap this morning then.
Yeah, we're at an hour now.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
And we really appreciate all of our viewers. TikTok has always been very supportive. YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're starting to get a lot of people chiming in now. And again, it's always fun. What we didn't mention this morning, and we didn't see it, tell us where you're from. We find that people are joining this podcast from all over the world.
Oh,
it's always fascinating to see Australia, South Africa, you know. Dubai has been there a number
Greece,
of times.
Dubai,
Yeah.
our friends in the Mediterranean. Yeah, thank you all so much for getting to join us on these shows. We really love getting to see where you guys are coming from. It's a global show, so we're so happy that you get to join us wherever you are, whenever you are.
And for those of you that are new, that haven't been part of this podcast, if you want to see information or expanded information on any of these topics, go to our YouTube site, Gruber Motors, and you'll find a couple hundred videos that address the majority of these topics that we cover here with much more detail.
You can also find past episodes of this show. If you think of a question, it might have been asked on another episode. So be sure to check out our previous episodes on our Shorts channel and on our main channel as well.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for joining us. I'm Pete Gruber.
And I'm Zane Courtney.
We'll see you next Tuesday at 8:30 Mountain Standard Time.
So we'll see you, Bill Wood from Key West, Warren Raven from Seattle, and John Lidstrom from Seattle as well.
2 Seattle audience members.
Fantastic.